So you probably have heard of MTHFR, but maybe someone has told you it's related to anxiety, depression, or attention issues. Maybe you've been told that you have that genetic variation, but no one's really explained to you what that means. Or maybe you have never heard of methylation at all, but your brain feels foggy, your mood is off, and nobody can tell you why. Hi, my name is 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞, and I help people optimize their brain health so they can feel calm, focused, and productive. And if that sounds like something that you want more of in your life, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of the tools and education I will be sharing each week. Today we are diving into one of the most important and misunderstood systems in the body, methylation, and how it directly affects your brain. So what exactly is methylation? Methylation is a biochemical process that happens in every cell of your body, billions of times per second. It's what allows your body to turn genes on and off, to create neurotransmitters, detoxify chemicals, metabolize hormones, build myelin, which protects your neurons, and even repair DNA. So when methylation isn't working well, you feel focused, when methylation is working well, you feel focused, emotionally balanced, and mentally sharp. But when it's not, you feel it in your brain first, because methylation plays a direct role in producing dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, and melatonin. At the core of the methylation cycle, your body is transferring something called a methyl group. It's a tiny molecule made up of one carbon and 3 hydrogen atoms, and it's transferring it to other compounds. And this process relies on nutrients such as folate, B12, B6, methionine to convert to homocysteine, or to convert homocysteine into methionine, which then becomes SAMe. Your body's primary methyl donor, which is SAMe, it helps with everything from turning genes on and off to creating neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. Once it's used, it gets recycled back through the cycle and using those same nutrients. But if the methylation isn't working well because of genetic mutations, nutrient deficiencies, toxin overload, or chronic stress, the homocysteine will start to build up, and then that actually is quite problematic. Elevated homocysteine is inflammatory and damaging to blood vessels, including those that supply your brain. It's been associated with increased risk of depression, anxiety, memory loss, cognitive decline, and even stroke. So when we see high homocysteine, it can be a red flag, not just for cardiovascular health, but for your brain health too. And there are homocysteine markers on different lab tests, so you might be interested in requesting your physician to look into that. What does poor methylation look like? So here are some symptoms. You can have brain fog, depression, low mood, anxiety, panic, poor stress tolerance, ADHD or attention issues, sleep issues, histamine sensitivity, sensory processing issues, poor detox, chronic fatigue, neurological developmental delay in kids, hormonal imbalances, especially in estrogen dominance. Some people are genetically poor methylators, so might know that as the gene, the MTHFR gene, which stands for methylene terahydrofolate reductase. Okay, so that's what MTHFR stands for. There are 2 common MTHFR SNPs, which are the C677T and the A128C. Those are the 2 that they typically will test. And I think, Life Extensions. I think Life Extensions has a test where they test the MTHFR, and then they also test COMT, which I'm going to talk about in a second. If you have 2 copies of these variants, your ability to convert folate into its usable form is reduced. So that impacts neurotransmitter production, detox, inflammation control, and cellular repair. But MTHFR isn't the only gene that's involved in methylation. So we have COMT, that's involved in breaking down dopamine and estrogen. And MAOA is involved in serotonin, norepinephrine metabolism. MTR and MTRR is related to B12 dependent methylation. CBS is involved in sulfur metabolism and detoxification. So it's not just the MTHFR everybody's always talking about. There's other ones, and sometimes you might have some of those genetic variations turned on, but you might have other markers that offset it. So it doesn't, just because you have it doesn't mean anything. It's more based on, okay, what are my symptoms? And also, here's another thing that's really important. You don't have to have a polymorphism to be a poor methylator. And a polymorphism is having that genetic variant, okay? So environmental stress, chronic inflammation, toxic exposure, nutrient deficiencies, and certain medications all can slow down the methylation cycle, even with somebody with normal genetics. So it's really not so important to go after the gene. Sometimes if you've done a lot of work and something isn't moving the needle, then you might want to see, okay, where is my genetics? But looking at one gene isn't necessarily helpful, and the gene could be turned on or turned off, and all of these things I just mentioned, stress, inflammation, toxic exposure, all of those things can turn a gene like that on, or it can turn a good gene off, like a helpful gene, it could turn it off. So we just kind of call it dirty genes. In fact, there is a great book by Dr. Ben Lynch called Dirty Genes. I should have had it with me here right now, but it's a great book for you to understand that knowing, I mean, you can go test your genes, but you could still be acting like you have the genetic variant because of all that stuff. It's just kind of gumming up the works. So how do you know if methylation is a problem? A great place is a basic CBC panel. So we have a regular blood work that you do with your doctor, and there are MCV, RDW, homocysteine would be on a separate panel. You would have to request that separately. But there's some good markers on the CBC panel that gives us clues as to how you're dealing or methylating, and if you maybe need to have some methyl B12 or methyl B vitamins. On the OAT test, the organic acid test, that's a urine test, there are a few markers, and even like the oxalate levels, elevated oxalates can be influenced by methylation of B6 status. So when methylation is impaired, detox slows down, inflammation builds, neurotransmitters become imbalanced, and the brain starts to struggle. Kids may be labeled with ADHD or sensory issues. Adults might feel anxious, foggy, moody, or emotionally reactive. And again, it's not a motivation issue. If you're a teacher or if you're a parent, your kid, okay, some of us might have kids who are lazy, but in general, every symptom is just an indication that they're struggling in some way. You know, if you're irritable, it's not because you want to be irritable and you don't want to snap at people. It's something inside is going on and you just really can't control it. Over time, poor methylation can even increase your risk for cognitive decline, cardiovascular issues, hormone imbalance, autoimmunity, mood disorders. All right, so let's look at folate versus folic acid. Folic acid is not the same as folate. Folic acid is the synthetic version in most conventional multivitamins, processed foods, and prenatal vitamins. People with MTHFR variants can't convert the folic acid into usable methylfolate. So therefore, it builds up in the body and it can block receptor sites, making things worse. So look for methylfolate, which is 5-MTHF, or folinic acid instead, and these are biologically active forms that your body can actually use. You want to avoid fortified breakfast cereals, commercial breads and baked goods, cheaper vitamins with folic acid instead of methylated folates. Research has shown links between poor methylation and neurodevelopment conditions like ADHD and autism. So I have been in this role for quite a while. In autism spectrum disorders, there's often low glutathione. That is your major master antioxidant, and it's created through methylation. High oxidative stress, increased inflammation, folate receptor autoantibodies. Okay, autism spectrum disorders or whatever isn't just because, you know, again, they don't want to have a hard time, but their hard time is like something is going on under the hood biochemically, and we have to go all the way down to the cellular level, and the methylation cycle is happening inside the cell. We can support methylation through diet, through nutrient therapy, and detoxification. And when you do that, it can make measurable difference in cognition, regulation, and focus. In children with ADHD, low folate and B12 status has been associated with poor attention and emotional regulation. And in some cases, targeted methylation support has improved behavioral and academic performance. Basically, if they're having a hard time methylating, you need to give them the methylated forms of B vitamins. So how do you support it? Use methylated nutrients, so that's methylfolate, methylcobalamin, which is B12, B6 version is P5P, and magnesium. Those are all crucial factors. You want to support the detoxification pathways, infrared saunas, movement, binders, hydration. All of those things help the detoxification pathways, and fiber-rich foods helps the body eliminate waste products that otherwise can block methylation. You want to reduce that toxic exposure. So the chemicals in your cleaning supplies, plastics, processed foods, the stuff that you put on your body, the types of shampoo that you use, medications, they all stress the methylation pathways. You can manage stress. Chronic stress depletes B vitamins and ramps up histamine, both which worsen methylation bottlenecks. And you want to test, okay? So you can use genetic panels, use an HTMA test, which is a hair tissue mineral analysis, a CBC, which is a blood test, a OAT test is a urine test. They all give insights into your body's specific needs and what's going on in the body. If this video helped you understand what's going on in your brain or your child's brain, then go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you're ready to get clarity on whether methylation issues are at the root of your symptoms, check the link in the description to book a free call with me. I will help you look at your symptoms, your labs, and your history and create a customized plan to support your methylation cycle so your brain can finally get the support it's been asking for. And also, if I remember, I'm going to put a link down here to a test for microplastics, because we were talking about how toxins are a really important part of methylation blocking. And so if you have a high load of microplastics, which most of us probably do, then there is a test. You can test for that, and there's a supplement that can help you eat up the plastic. I have a 30-day challenge where there's 2 kits. You get 2 kits and a supplement, so a pre and a post test and supplement, and I'll put a link for that in the description below as well. And I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.